All right. Check, check, check. Nobody's here yet.
You'll have to be the one clicking through. I should have brought my clicker.
Well, I will click for you. Hope people show up. I have 138. You think some will?
That's how many registered today?
207 tomorrow.
Wow. I think we get 35.
I think it'll be over 50.
100 people don't show up.
Over 50. Don't let me forget to record. Hello, my name is Eddie. What was it? Practice only mode. Attendees cannot join until you broadcast. Oh, that might help. Now they can join.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go ahead and put up the screen. Sure. Oh, we got two. Two people are in. Hey, everybody, we're going to go ahead and wait for everyone to get logged in. So we're going to start at 11 Central Time. So go ahead and get some coffee and get situated. We're excited to get started in a little bit. Go ahead and make sure your volume is on. If you have any questions or anything, there is a chat box in the bottom. Go ahead and put your messages there. We're also going to be opening up Q&A at the end of this as well. So feel free to use the question feature as well. If you have questions, you can go ahead and start writing them in there now, as well as in the chat box. We'll be checking both throughout the webinar as well. It's going to be a good topic today, Eddie.
I think so. I'm actually interested in hearing a lot of feedback from other players in the industry and hearing best practices as well.
Absolutely, and definitely if you're already thinking of things that you want to share today, feel free to throw it in the chat box as well as in the Q&A box. So we will be recording this at 11 o'clock, so we will send a follow-up to this webinar as well, so you can actually stream it, replay it, or share with your team as well. Those of you just joining us, we're going to get started in about 10 minutes. I feel like we should play some music or something.
You want me to go get my guitar?
You have it?
No.
And if you can go ahead, if you're in here right now, go ahead in the chat box, if you see it, if you're sitting in front of your computer, and go ahead and just type what your name is, where you're from. If you own a company, work for a company, we'd love to just hear where some of you guys are from and what's going on out there. So feel free to start chatting as well and putting that in there. There we go. Hey, Jennifer. Appreciate you being here. Rochelle, hope you're doing well. Hey, Jennifer from Boston Environmental. Bill Wise or Bill Kelly up in PA. Good to have you here. Cody, thanks for joining in. Excited to meet you guys. Gabe in Colorado Cleanup Services. Thanks for being here. All right, we're gonna get started in about 8 minutes as everybody keeps joining in. And if you're just joining us, feel free to drop in the chat box your name, where you're from, what company you work with or own. Hey, Michael with Colorado Cleanup Services. Hey, Jeff. No, we're not bored. We're just sitting here waiting to get started.
No, our form of entertainment probably would scare most people, so we're not bored. So we are ugly, yes. Thanks for pointing that out. I do appreciate it. We do have faces for radio. So
True. True. Well, Jeff, are you nominating yourself for the best looking restoration owner in America?
Hey, Gerard, how you doing, sir? He says yes, over 53. Hello, Darren from Serpro Egg Harbor. How you doing, sir? I guess it is pretty hard to make for us to look like we are entertained for, staring at a computer for the next few minutes.
Like I said, beard coming in great. Yeah, I've been working on that. I got to groom mine though, but everything's shut down. So apparently, I guess hairstylists aren't essential businesses or right now.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I can grow hair on my face, can't grow it on my head. It's just not a cool thing at all. I would much rather transplant it, work it that way, but especially in the wintertime.
Well, no, we're excited to get started. We're going to get started in about 6 minutes as everybody keeps joining in. Again, we've been getting a lot of questions on coronavirus cleanup. In our background, me and Eddie have both worked for a large restoration company here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're seeing a lot of the questions that you have and just kind of want to open that discussion today, talk about how to position that with commercial targets as well with everything going on. I know there's a lot of uncertainty in this conversation of what's going to happen in the next week, 2 weeks, but we're going to kind of go over, how we position this in the past when we've worked with hospitals, medical facilities for infectious disease cleanup. So very excited to talk about this today. I appreciate everybody joining in right now, but we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. But if you are just joining us, feel free in the chat box, put your name and where you're from and what company you own. We'd love to see where you guys are from, coming in all over the country right now. And I did say earlier, we are going to be recording this. So we do have your email from when you registered. So we will send you a private YouTube link as well for you to view and share with your friends as well once this is over. Hey, Zachariah from Platinum Pest Solutions. How you doing? Rihanna from ServPro. What ServPro are you from? What part of the country? Niagara Falls. Awesome. Wow. I love it up there. Actually, love Buffalo. I can't get enough of the chicken wings up there. Oh, Jennifer, do you have a question? Thoughts on electrostatic spraying equipment? Eddie, have you done that before?
No, I know realistically the only thing as far as electronics are concerned, you're probably going to want to follow the same protocol that you would for electronics restoration in being able to do that. Same chemical base, same wipe down protocol procedure. So as far as doing the electrostatic spraying, I don't know, but if you will do me a favor, shoot me an email at eddie@tierlevel.com. I will get you an answer today. So that's EDDIE at tierlevel, TIER level.com.
And we'll have his email up at the end of the webinar as well. So if you guys have additional questions after this webinar, we don't claim to be the know-all, be-all expert. So we do happen to have a lot of connections in the industry. If we do need to find a specific answer that you might have throughout this webinar, we want to be a resource for you, at least help you network and find that from other professionals across the country. So we've got about 3 minutes and we're going to get started. So I'm going to let everybody keep coming in. If you are just joining us, put your name, where you're from, what company you work for or own. We'd love to hear where you guys are from around the country. And definitely we'll be opening up some Q&A at the end of this as well.
All right, Tyler says electrostatic would be using the electrostatic sprayer. Company named Victory produces them. What's to say? It change. Well, it's scrolling so quickly. Tyler, we'll get that input sent over to Jennifer on that as well. So thanks for chiming in.
So it changes to a fine mist particulate to supposedly allow it to wrap around better cover surfaces. So no, good information there. The company's name is Victory, it produces them. So I don't know if you guys are experiencing a hard time getting products right now. We're hearing that from around the country that it's really hard to get PPE and different parts of different masks and respirators right now. If any of you have any resources that you guys have found around the country or anybody is still shipping or supplies in stock, feel free to let everybody know as well. So we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. There's many of you are still joining in right now. We're very excited to host this today. So keep your questions coming. I see some are coming into the Q&A box. Patrick Wright, I can't chat for some reason. Let me check on that, Patrick, for you real quick. See.
Hello, Miss Brittany, Serpro and PA, Gerard from the Lou.
Patrick, your settings are on are normal right now. See if you can find the chat box and get in there.
And that's another good question, Jennifer, as far as the airless sprayer is concerned. Again, just due to the fact that it's electronics, we don't want to misinform anyone at all. So we will definitely make sure that we get an answer to that question for you.
No, your microphones are not on because there's so many people on this webinar. We had over 130 register. So mostly the chat box and the Q&A box is where you can put your question. Go ahead. If you do have questions now, you can put them in the Q&A box. We are going to go through this presentation as quick as possible just to kind of get some of the bolts and nuts on what we recommend. And then we will open it up for Q&A where you guys can dialogue as well. We will start recording in just a minute. We still have more people coming in at this time, so we're going to go ahead and get started in about 30 seconds. Hey, Jamie from Team Thole, Servpro in St. Louis. Hey, Joey from Philadelphia. It's good to see you. Justin Hoffman, thanks for joining.
Hey, Justin Hoffman.
Tammy down in San Marcos. Hope you're doing well today. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and hit record now. Just give me 1 second. All right, it's actually already recording, so we're good to go. All right, well, we just want to first off start. More people are still joining in right now, so we're going to let them keep coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Keep your questions coming in the chat box. It's going to fill up, so there's a Q&A section in the webinar or in the chat box, and we'll check both of them at the end. If you have a question, we might misread it or might missee it because so many are coming in, just feel free to go back and retype it. We won't think it's annoying or anything like that. So many of you are talking a lot about chemicals and products. We will get answers for those one-on-one if we have to, but we will try to answer as many of those on completion of this webinar. So today, my name is Sean Michael Lewis. This is Eddie Green. We both have extensive backgrounds in the sales and the restoration industry. I worked on the corporate level for a large brand called ServPro, which many of you are probably familiar with. But we, upon that and going to work on a local level in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we had a lot of success in the commercial landscape, growing franchise from 3 to over 12, $13 million in just a few years. So we're going to be talking a lot about how to position the conversation. What research do you need to be doing to better equip yourself to answer questions with property managers, risk managers, as this epidemic continues to grow? Because right now, the first thing I want to really say is there's a lot of uncertainty about COVID-19, coronavirus, and where it's going, what the country's going to be doing. There's not really any hardcore answers because state by state, there's a lot of differentiations right now. So we want to leave this open. Oh, real quick, Kelly said no volume. Check on your computer and see if you have it muted, or toggle around with your volume switch. But again, if you're having any technical issues, we are recording this, so we will send a link out as well on completion of this webinar. So, but that's really what the purpose of this is today. We want to open up a lot of dialogue where you can share feedback, people can share feedback, and we can really start to get in a position, because our background is in sales and business development. So what we want to help equip you is, how do you create that conversation with people in your local community to deal with this cleanup? Now, first thing is, and I'm sure many of you are aware, you can go in and be proactive all you want. If a contaminated or infected person enters that facility, it's just been recontaminated. So there are a lot of liability thoughts that you have to put into this with your companies if you're an owner. So you have to be extremely careful. Yes, this is a big opportunity for restoration providers, but it's also a time when we don't want to take advantage and exploit our products and services of what we do. So Eddie, I'm going to go ahead and let you get started and kind of talk about your background. Eddie was the head of commercial sales and business development director for a large ServPro. Since then, he's worked with several different companies and helping them grow their business development teams that have had a lot of success. So, many of you, I know some of you in here are doing extremely well in this business, but the whole point of this is, again, we don't have all the answers. We're not the be all end all experts, but we just want to share with what we've learned and what we know to help benefit you guys where you're at across the country. So Eddie, go ahead and get started, and I'll go ahead and share the presentation so you guys can see that as well.
Sure. So as Sean said, my name's Eddie Green. I was director of business development for a large loss response team franchise system. Part of the quote unquote claim to fame that I had is I was a multi-million-dollar sales performer in a relatively small area, and it became this critical out of the box thinking, servant's heart mentality is why that I have the success that I had. My 5-year plan was to go into consulting, which I did, and then ended up as also chief growth officer here at Tier Level for digital marketing. We are a niche-based restoration digital marketing firm. So we want to get into, I've spent just countless hours over the last week and a half on the phone with restoration providers all over the United States. Just a lot of them were coming in with saying, we don't understand. We're seeing people that are posting things on LinkedIn about all these COVID-19 cleanups, but we're not able to get in there and position that. So we're going to show you some more immediate gratification verticals today. We're going to kind of get into some of the nuances from the World Health Organization, the CDC, IICRC standard and protocol, things like that, because I kind of went on a rant on my LinkedIn, and some of you, or a lot of you, may have seen it about the fact that this is, I think that there are two different channels in the restoration industry. One is that it is truthfully our time to shine in the restoration industry, to come in with that servant's heart mentality, to be able to go in and help the communities and keep these facilities that aren't required to go into mandatory shutdown open for business by giving them peace of mind. So whenever we're going to talk about the positioning aspect of it, we want to set the precedent. We're not self-proclaimed experts on this. We are not self-proclaimed authorities on this. But we are getting a lot of questions, and due to that, we saw a need for this format to be able to go out and to really combine us to be one community, colleagues, not competitors, with one goal in mind. So the two different channels that I'm seeing that are opening up are one that people have woke up and they've seen the dollar signs and they are out to exploit this situation. And if that is you, I'm going to humbly request you jump off this call. We don't want you here. We want people here that want to make a difference. We want people here that want to understand that this is not a free service, but are willing to work within acceptable margins. We want people here that want to do this for the right reasons. That being said, I've spoken with a lot of people that are wanting to go in for Cat 1 preventative measure cleanings and want to charge $3 and $4 a square foot. And you know what? I just don't understand that mentality. That is sheer exploitation. So first thing we're going to talk about is what we've already kind of touched on, which is going to be the mentality. The nation is hurting right now, and more importantly, they're scared. And you guys are the subject matter experts. You guys are their superheroes. You guys can do what nobody else can do. Every customer matters. Every customer needs your attention and needs you to be able to come in and save the day. So the mentality is that we finally get to change the paradigm shift in the restoration industry, that it's viewed and frowned upon as an industry that likes to exploit situations, that we're vultures, that we are people who are going to come in, do too much demo, overcharge for what needs to be done, place too much equipment, and not listen to the customer's needs. Now is our time to shine. And Sean, I'll let you expand.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, we have a mantra here at tier level in our organization, and even when we work in the restoration side on the local level, is it comes down to two things: out care, out educate. I've been saying this for years and years and years. If you care more and you have the educational background to educate your customer, that is what really differentiates you from a lot of the competition that's out there exploiting opportunities right now. So I feel that it's very important. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of research that still needs to be done. We do know there's certain products that will absolutely kill viruses and bacteria and infectious disease, but you have to be very careful with those claims. COVID-19 is still a very new virus. There's a lot of misunderstanding about it, but at the end of the day, we are in a position to be that expert. And it's not just going to come by what you know of the past. You have to make sure you're being a student of the game, that you're continuing to study and using the credible resources like the CDC or any protocol, whether you're an independent or you work for a corporate headquarters. They're sending out a lot of probably valuable information right now. If you are an independent, I encourage you to reach out to any colleagues that you might know in the business and make sure you share best practices. This is not a time there's going to be a lot of work and a lot of opportunity if there's not already there. I hear from several of you across the country doing massive cleanups now in commercial facilities, from arenas to even some schools. But we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit today, of like, what are those focus areas you should be focusing on right now? What are those essential businesses that are remaining open and people are going in and out of, where the employees might not be qualified or staffed enough to do? We're already seeing an explosion in temporary hiring right now with Walmart, Amazon, Walgreens, Dollar Tree. I mean, there's a huge list of them online now. They're hiring thousands of employees to keep up with stock and inventory management. But it's really important that right now the employees are doing the wipe down. The employees are doing that. And that's the mentality that you have to get into, is understand their business. So we're not moving away from the sales cycle here. You have to understand what is critical for your business right now. If that's keeping the doors open, if that's keeping your customers satisfied, you have to understand that, and how can you help to benefit and position what we do for them.
Well, let's talk about that as far as getting into the positioning, because on the margin side, everybody is dealing with different economies and different regions. So on the margin side, I'm just asking you, as one professional to another, as one colleague to another, be fair with these people. I see across the board, it's typically on Cat 1, which we'll get into the categories here in just a little bit, can be anywhere from 10 cents a square foot based on the region up to about 60 cents a square foot. based on the region, but be fair and equitable is all I'm asking. So, but let's talk about the positioning. I know that a lot of times that you guys are encountering the objections of we're just having what we're doing is, let's take a grocery store, for example. They're saying we are reducing our hours that we are going to sell so that we can restock and clean. The question that you should be having to the COI or the Center of Influence is, are your employees certified to be able to do this type of cleaning? Do they have infectious disease control training? Do they have the proprietary chemicals necessary to be able to do the cleaning that you're asking? And secondly, what is the liabilities that you could potentially incur by having your employees come in and do this type of cleaning? The liabilities are, let's look at big picture. If they are working that hard, and I don't know how many of you guys have been into some of these places, the employees in the grocery stores, they are so overwhelmed and so exhausted. Yes, they are thankful that they have a job, but man, you can't tell me that they are adequately going in and doing the cleanings that are necessary when companies like you, the professionals, the experts, really should be the one positioning to say, look, you guys focus on what you can control. You focus on your job, your employees, and your patrons. You need to let us focus on what we are experts at. And we're not coming in here to take advantage of you, but we are trained in this type of cleanup. And the liabilities are, what happens if one of your employees gets sick? If one of them gets sick and they did not have the appropriate PPE, they did not have the appropriate chemical base, they did not have the appropriate training, the company is literally setting themselves up for a potential lawsuit. What happens if one of the patrons gets sick and then they go back and start doing due diligence and finding out research that the COVID-19 stuff was not being routinely cleaned and maintained by a company that has infectious disease control certification or has their HAZWOP or has, is versed in biotrauma and hazmat cleanup? The second thing is, if employees get sick, they lose their employee base. So you want to do the things that you can to position it and say, we want to keep your employees healthy. Let us do what we're experts at doing. You would never walk into a doctor's office and say, I'm going to go ahead and go perform that heart surgery for that doctor. That's what the doctor's expertise is. Your expertise is this. So when you are positioning, don't buy into the traditional objections of we're going to do this ourselves. It is your job to step up on the educational platform at this time and tell them the how, what, when, whys, and wheres of the reason that your company needs to be doing that and that you're going to treat them fairly.
And it's very important when you're having these conversations. There's a lot of centers of influence, we call them COI, that could be potential decision makers. It might not be just the store manager of a grocery store or the general manager of an assisted living facility. There are owners involved. There's general counsel involved. There's risk managers involved, depending on the size of an organization. It is very important that when you start having these conversations, you don't just make it a one-on-one with the store manager. Ask questions like, who makes decisions on your liability? Who makes decisions on the risk management of this facility? That starts to deepen who you truly need to talk to. Because what I see a lot of restoration sales professionals doing is pitching the wrong person all the time. So that does go back more into the sales cycle of doing your research, doing that kind of pre-planning to make sure you have those questions like Eddie just talked about. What is that liability? What does your employee scope of work look like right now? I mean, that's not typical for them to do full wipe downs beyond general janitorial and cleaning staff. So where do we start to bring that in more depth conversation? And by asking the right questions, you can definitely uncover that.
And one of the big questions that you need to be asking whenever you go in and sit down and set aside from a mandatory issued lockdown from the legislature or from the governing bodies of your state, what are the things that scare you the most about this? And let them talk, let them get into the things that are keeping them up at night. Now, here in lies the second inherent problem, is that we're having a hard time getting through the doors and being able to get in front of these centers of influence. You have so many resources at your disposal now. I would suggest, like, say, for example, if you really want to, as we get into the verticals, and we'll talk about that on the verticals, but if you want to get in front of, say, for example, a large volume of restaurants, why are you not going through the local restaurant association, asking them to distribute flyers on your behalf to say, look, Here's the deal. I don't care if you're a Belfour. I don't care if you're a ServPro. I don't care if you're Paul Davis, BMS Cat, ATI, Interstate, or an independent. There is enough work out there for everyone at this point. This is an all hands on deck mentality, and we need to be working together. So get involved in the associations, the hotel and lodging, your ALAs, if it's like Pennsylvania, BPALA, which is a Pennsylvania Association of Assisted Living, and offer to help come in and clean. So they've also too identified, we're going to move on to the next slide, the categories of cleaning, much like they do the categories of water by IICRC standards. Cat 1 is going to be your preventative measure cleaning. There has not been an identified threat. There's no person that has been sick that they know of. Nobody has been tested. This is all just preventative measure cleaning. The last CDC guideline, I encourage you guys to reevaluate the facts of everything that we say here, because again, we are not the CDC, but based on the last research that I did in a Cat 1, if you guys are looking to be able to minimize use of your chemicals that you're using, they're stating that the first thing you can do is go in with warm dishwater soap, soapy water, and go wipe things down on your initial cleaning. And then on your final clean is when you're going to use, your Benefect, your oxide, your sodium hypochlorite, your ammonium chloride, whatever it is chemical that you're using to kill viruses. You go back through on your final wipe down and do that. So Cat 2 means that there's a reasonable suspicion of a virus present. Typically, the easiest indicator is that somebody or multiple people are being tested, but there has not been a diagnosis at this point. Okay, so now we have reasonable suspicion to believe that there could be a potential threat on site, but not an identified threat on site. And then Cat 3 is that there has been proven. There has been somebody there, either one or multiple people, that have had a confirmed case of COVID-19 on site. At that point, this is a 100% true hazmat issue moving forward. This is full suits. This is respirators. This is, massive deep cleaning of the facility, lots of wipe down. I would encourage on a Cat 3 to treat it much like a mold situation with a 3-step cleaning process to ensure that you're doing everything that you possibly can. So if you guys will take a look at the next slide, this was in regards to Cat 3 cleanup. I'm saying that you should take this as gospel, but this is basically what was said in response to on Cat 3s on whether or not OSHA, they're requiring OSHA certification or HAZWOPER certification. In regards to Cat 3 cleanup for COVID-19, a virus capable of killing 2 to 5% of the people that it infects is considered a biological threat, capable of being immediately dangerous to life or health. Effects from exposure to contaminants may be immediate or have delayed or permanent adverse health effects. Therefore, workers should be properly trained and protected with the appropriate PPE. Since this latest outbreak of the novel coronavirus is immediately dangerous to life or health, at least some level of OSHA or HAZWOPER training is necessary. In addition, President Trump has declared a national state of emergency, confirming the requirements that HAZWOPER training is needed, not only to clean up after a confirmed site contamination, but also to provide preventative measures. So I went in and partnered with a colleague of mine to get a little more in-depth explanation as to what that said. And basically, here were where we pulled everything that we could find. We pulled it from the CDC, and we would be happy to share this presentation with you so that you can directly click the links. But in regards to Cat 3, the CDC has recently issued the following protocol. CDC website has provided some up-to-date info giving managers guidance for OSHA regs that need to be followed. Workers must be trained when and how to use the PPE, which we're all doing as restoration providers. In OSHA's hazard communication standard, and there's the standard, comply with the bloodborne pathogens and proper disposal of waste and PPE, and the disinfectants used included diluted bleach solutions, alcohol solutions, household cleaners, followed by disinfectants and a list of 287 EPA registered household disinfectants. So you guys can go onto the CDC website and find what the appropriate chemical base is to be able to clean substances. We have now seen by reports that the COVID-19 virus can live as long as 24 days on hard surfaces.
Yeah, and that was, I know it was pulled yesterday on one of the big news outlets. And again, don't take everything the news says for 100% truth. There's a lot of, we keep hearing this going on. Is the media exploiting this? Is the media hyping things up? It's obviously a serious issue because we're responding to it on a national level, but do the research, do the credible sites. I mean, the CDC is running ads all over Fox, CNN right now, you know, using cdc.com/ or cdc.gov/coronavirus as a resource link, you know, what to do as an individual. I mean, this is the kind of educational content you can take and communicate with these clients. They've been so busy that they might not have had the time to go through all the basics that we know right now and that we've been exposed to. So it's very important that you continue to educate yourself, but also so you have the resources and credibility. If you don't know, don't just make an assumption. Don't make an assumption because that creates possible liability issues. I mean, be very careful with what you say too, and use these sites as references that have the most credible information. I wouldn't use a stock article from Fox News, CNN, NBC, whatever. I would make sure that you actually go back to any source that has accreditation and credibility to make sure that you're sharing viable information.
Yeah, and you know, lastly, the last one that I cited was the one that Restoration Industry Association put out for COVID-19 resources, and I thought that that was absolutely fantastic because they did actually partner with IICRC and OSHA to be able to release that out. So moving forward, let's talk about verticals. Let's talk about immediate need verticals versus a little bit longer tail process. So the thing about the immediate needs is that there have been federal mandate of certain organizations that are not going to be allowed to close because they are considered necessary organizations. These should be targets that you should be going out and offering multiple times a week cleanings. And those are going to be things like it's going to be daycares, it's going to be grocery stores, pharmacies, retail, any retail space that is allowed to stay open. Assisted living. I'm going to stop and kind of focus a little bit on the assisted living side. They are so understaffed right now that the administrators are putting out a call to action to have people please come apply for CNA positions. They will train them on site to be able to do this because they cannot keep up. This is a great opportunity for you to get involved with your ALA association in your state. So if it's California, it would be CALA, the California Assisted Living Association, to be able to distribute flyers out. I'm going to tell you right now that I was mentoring a restoration company in Colorado, and they sent it out through the Restaurant Association. Within 2 hours, they had 8 cleaning jobs. So the flyers were tremendous. They partnered with the right organization to be able to get those things out. The other thing is manufacturing and warehouses are not shutting down. They're still doing it. Now you're going to see the last one, restaurants on both more immediate need and longer tail processes. And here's why. Restaurants are right now, for the most part in almost every state, are now curbside. So you can schedule deep cleanings for them on their restaurants for when they open, but think about the traffic that's going in and out. Their employees are still coming into contact with people in their cars. They're still tracking stuff in and out of the facility. So why would they not need routine maintenance and wipe down? So daycares, you might not be able to get through the front door. Go out to your, if you can't get through the front door, go out to your car, pick up the phone and call and ask to speak with the director. Grocery stores, typically you're going to be dealing with risk managers. Even if they are national chains with national agreements, find out how you can get on the vendor list to be able to provide local support. The forest through the trees is when we finally get through this, you have helped them in being able, you don't want their business, you want to keep them in business. So by keeping them in business, you're going to be presence of mind for any of the mitigation stuff that happens as soon as we get through this, or God forbid they have a mitigation issue during. Okay. So if you look at some of the longer tail processes.
Well, real quick, Eddie, on the immediate need, this is back what I was talking about at the beginning of the presentation. you really have to understand those centers of influence. If you're talking to a general manager that's running the day-to-day right now, he might be so overwhelmed. The risk factor might not be in the back of his mind like the CFO or the owner of the company or somebody like a risk manager if it's a bigger type operation like a grocery store. Having that conversation on risk assessment is going to probably be a gold mine in most of these verticals. You start looking at daycare, you start looking at grocery stores and things like that are required to be open to help children, to help families feed their family and things like that. Pharmacies, it's extremely important to understand that because you could just be pitching the wrong person, like, yeah, I'll get back to you. And then you're just falling into that repetitive sales cycle. And this goes way beyond COVID-19. This is how you should be acting as a sales professional on an ongoing basis. And, again, they might not understand the true risk because they're so focused on running their business now, but you've got to ask those questions. You've got to uncover that so you can start to build that. Like we said, we don't know when things are going to open 100% again. I mean, the president is saying one thing, all the states are saying different variations of it. So, these are the immediate areas we feel that you should really focus on right now. But at the same time, this is going to mellow out at some point. How long that is, I don't know. But I know this is where you can start. And then as things start to progress and they get a hold of the epidemic nationwide, then you're going to want to start looking at some of the longer tail process right here.
Right. And, whenever you're asking those questions of the COI, I mean, Sean just hit it on the head. He may be so overwhelmed with trying to keep his business's head above water that he hasn't had time to focus on the actual risk at hand, which is your job to be able to come in and do the education. What are some of the resources because now at this point, you're not walking in with a business card taped to a box of cookies and asking for business. This is true education. This is true subject matter experts that these people are needing to deal with. So at this point, you utilize the tools that you do have: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, even, follow all their social media channels, company website, and, God forbid you pick up the phone and actually make a phone call, to be able to get in front of these people. So some of the longer tail processes are the ones that are completely shut down, but it's a good opportunity for you to be able to schedule out some deep cleanings of these facilities so that when they do open, because you really can't provide them with a whole lot of peace of mind because you're going to minimize impact by doing preventative cleaning. But the minute somebody walks into that facility, it's automatically cross-contaminated, much like breaking mold containment. So, the situation is that you have to under promise and over perform in these situations. But the longer tail process, if they are in fact locking the buildings up and people aren't going in, you can give them the peace of mind and saying, let's go in, do a really deep clean on your facility so that when it does open up, you understand that your facility is safe. So the churches, the school systems, universities, movie theaters, restaurants, again, you can do the deep cleaning side and then offer to do the preventative maintenance side on the areas that they're touching every day. And any of the little small mom and pop businesses, our prayers go out to them. We really hope that they're going to make it through this, because we do know that in a disaster that over 50% of mom and pop or small business fails in a disaster situation. And this is a bona fide disaster.
And even when you think of some of these verticals, like when you're looking at churches, there's a lot of different types of churches, from non-denominational to traditional Methodist, Baptist type churches, really focused on where that conversation they might be more open to receive it. So churches with older congregations, your more traditional denomination, might be a good starting point. Yeah, some of them might be smaller facilities, and then you get into the mega churches and bigger churches around the country. But it's all about how do they keep their people safe. A lot of churches have kind of migrated to online services, which I'm sure many of you have seen right now, and they're still collecting tithes and offerings. So some of them are actually bringing in more than they traditionally do on a normal weekend service. So it's very interesting to see how a lot of these entities are innovating now. We're seeing schools start to move to online curriculum. My daughter is 8 years old. We just got an email for a Zoom webinar tonight with her teacher, just to kind of bring all the kids back together. So, this is where you really, again, just have to talk about the risk factor. If we're doing preventative cleaning, we have to be very transparent. This doesn't guarantee that coronavirus COVID-19 is going to be in your facility at some point, but we are here to make sure that you are taking all the proper protocols to be as safe and prepared as you possibly can, and making sure that's documented, and everything else that we do as providers and professionals need to be a necessity in this process.
Right. So again, we reemphasize that, it's your opportunity. When I've found people that have been on the educational front of the restoration industry, I find those to be the more successful individuals that are there, as opposed to the people that are just trying to, go out and shotgun blast everything. This is where you really need to take your time. So, it's one of those situations to where we have, you really want to dial in, know you do your research, go in and have engaging conversations, ask the questions of things that's going to keep them up at night, and be a solution to their problem. So we're going to open it up for questions now. At this point, I know that we've touched on some things at a very high level. From a technical level, on COVID-19, like I said, there are over 287 chemicals currently on the market that have been approved to be able to go out and kill this virus. So I'm sure you can, most likely you have, a proprietary chemical of some sort. But let's go ahead and open up the chat blog for questions. It doesn't have to just be questions. It can be best practices. We, at this point, the next few minutes are going to be pure lead. So it's on you guys, and we'll read them as we get them.
Yes, and Pacey just asked if we can get a recording of this. Yes, we will be recording it, and I have an email list of everybody that registered for this webinar. Also, Eddie at tierlevel.com, you can email him, and he can send you a link to the recorded version of this, which should be up an hour or two after we're done with this session. We are going to be partnering up with Esporta. They have an environmental company that will be talking more on the technical aspects on April 2nd. We will make sure that we send you out a updated webinar list. If you do go to tierlevel.com, and I'll put the slide back up on the screen real quick, tierlevel.com/webinar, it'll list all of our upcoming webinars as well. We're going to continue to go further and deeper into this. We're going to be doing one on Friday on digital marketing and how you can capitalize on that to create conversation in your community. April 8th, we have we actually have a really good partnership with Esporta and what they're doing in terms of cleaning up to the coronavirus. We have one for April 2nd that's getting uploaded today that you'll be able to register. We will put that in a link. But right now, feel free to start asking questions. There's a Q&A box, and there's also the chat box. You can put your question in either or. But what kind of questions do you guys have? What kind of issues maybe are you running to in the into the area? Now, we're getting a lot of questions like this from Bill Wise right now. Just like, can we get some consistent pricing guideline 1, 2, and 3 for square footage number? As we said earlier, this is ranging all over the country depending on what market you're in. What I've seen personally from our clients is anywhere from 50 cents to $1. Now, in certain markets, we're seeing a little higher for after-hour cleanings that can go in between the $1 and $2 range. But that's really up to your market and what you're pricing at. What we want to just kind of caution you is, don't get into the gouging and the opportunity because somebody's desperate and start charging $4 or $5 a square foot. Certain facilities that might be Cat 3 might require a higher price per square foot. But you just have to be ethical. Look at your margins, look at your labor, look at those things that factor in there. I mean, it's okay to make good profit margins, which you can with this kind of work, but it is very critical that you don't burn bridges, because this is a long-term effect that can jeopardize your business if you don't respond accordingly. Because again, this is a month, 2 months, 6 months process, or however long it's going to be. You still have a reputation in a business that you do not want to get any bad press. And I would not be surprised if the EPA, different government organizations, will go after restoration providers that are doing malpractice in this area. So extremely important that you do follow all guidelines and have ethical pricing. But I can honestly say myself, in the market that we're in Oklahoma, 50 cents, $1, $1.50, depending on the facility and what the situation is. I mean, you have to get into a lot of different scenarios. Like if you're moving a lot of equipment, if you're, getting into textiles that need to be taken out. I mean, there's a lot of different factors in there. So you guys are more than welcome to share what kind of pricing you're doing. and things like that. So let me check. What about hospitals and other frontline industries? Elaborate on how to help them clean and keep our people safe.
So on the hospital side, I've seen, and it's not a necessary component that you have to have, but I would encourage you, if you do not have your ICRA certification, that you go get that. I've seen a lot of restoration companies kicked off of hospital clinics, any medical facility like cancer treatment centers. I've seen them get removed, so the companies can come in and have their ICRA certification. That's ICRA. So I would encourage that. Most of your hospitals are going to have protocol in place to be able to handle this. That's what they specialize in, is in infectious disease control. But if you do get the happenstance that somebody is going to need it, they're going to need it. Then at that point, maybe you can offer to come in and do some trainings with new people to kind of get your foot in the door, and then offer to do some residual cleaning to be able to alleviate some pressure from their staff to be able to keep up with it. The thing about it is that you have to understand is that coronavirus has been identified in all 50 states now. So you realistically are going to have to be in the hip pocket of the administrator of that facility, or whoever is handling the making the phone calls to the restoration companies on whether or not you are acting as if everything is Cat 3 protocol in a hospital or clinic situation, because that's where it is. That's where these people are being housed. So, you're going to have those conversations. Andrew wanted to ask, how could we price per square foot if we're cleaning desks, chairs, doorknobs, kitchens? It's not a flat surface like a floor. At that point, then you probably would want to do an hourly rate based off of T&M, and potentially look at being able to discount it based on margins. That's probably what I would look at doing, is because you are correct. If you are doing a lot of incidental type work, then at that point, you're probably going to want to use T&M pricing if you can.
And a lot of this too is, share, like Bill Kelly just wrote, so why don't we go $1 for Cat 1, $1.50 for Cat 2, and $3 for Cat 3. Again, it really depends on your market. I know, Bill, you're up in the Philadelphia area. So if that seems to be what the labor rates and everything kind of lines up with your margin, I think that's okay. Obviously in Oklahoma, Arkansas, some of these regions where we're at in the middle America, pricing is going to probably be a little less because of the cost of living and things like that. But I think, I don't think you're far off there. I just think, just make sure that you're being ethical about it and that you're treating your clients, because again, you go in and do this type of cleaning for them, get their business back open, you're also winning relationships for life. And that's really what matters, is that you want them to be your go-to, whether you do fire, mold, water, whatever. You want to make sure that they understand your full scope of service. And it's important that you talk about those things too. There are going to be water losses. There's going to be fires. There's going to be, mold situations. And it's important that you do that full spectrum of education beyond COVID-19.
So Blaine, you're asking, what about residential? We have clients that want us to come in and do their homes. I think that, again, it's going to have to be transparent conversation. What are they wanting you to come in and do, and what category is this going to fall under, which is how that's going to determine your pricing. Again, on a home, it's pretty easy, all based upon what you're going to do, be priced per square foot. I kind of, if they want you to come in and clean doorknobs and things like that, then maybe you just use the square footage as the room as your pricing protocol. Andrew said that they've been providing estimates based on estimated labor and consumables used. We've looked into T&M for very large facilities with an agreed price list with the client. So my question to you, Andrew, is, and for the panel, is based on that statement, have you been successful in being able to secure and lock down, multiple cleanings, and that kind of thing? Have you had success with it?
You can put that in the chat box real quick. Angel also asked real quick, applied microbial and health and safety from IOCRC. Are those certifications enough for COVID-19 jobs?
I would, again, like I said, don't take anything that we say at face value. My initial inclination would be yes. You're following ICRC protocol based on biohazardous material and infectious disease control. So that should be enough to be able to do the COVID-19. I would probably reach out to your OSHA regulations representative just to confirm, because I'm assuming that whenever you're asking that on a Cat 1 or Cat 2, there's not any type of certification, additional certifications that I know of that are necessary. So I'm assuming that you're speaking in strictly a Cat 3 measure. And based on the documentation that I have read that has come out, there has to be some level of training through OSHA or potential HAZWOPER to be able to do Cat 3. Now, how they would monitor and regulate that, I couldn't tell you, but I think that it's important that you just go back to your OSHA regulations representative and have that conversation and open dialogue with them, just so that you can cover your bases.
Yeah, so Bill Kelly just goes, I would tell all franchises to get their safety, hold on, let me pull this over real quick. Their safety officer in to fit test all employees for their full face mask before doing any job. That's a good point right
Yep,
there.
could not agree more.
We've been getting a lot of calls from even construction companies that, that are going into buildings that they work on or have worked on. They're letting the maintenance crews go because they don't want them inside facilities, and they're asking about fit testing. So I would definitely recommend, if you haven't done that already or recently done that, make sure you get that fit test in place, because it is extremely critical to make sure. I know with these big beards right here, we don't really qualify for an accurate fit testing right now. But back in the day, we were clean shaved. So, but no, I absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. Andrew also wrote, what are your thoughts on ULV fogging and Benefect or concrobian?
I think that that's pretty much been protocol. Whether it's an ammonium chloride, a sodium hypochlorite, a Benefect, an oxide, any of those kinds of things, fogging has been the typical protocol that I have seen for people to be able to go in. It helps them conserve chemical, and B, you get the light mist coating that's going to be able to go down to get all the areas and the cracks and all of that. So fogging tends to be the main way of being able to do it, as opposed to just going through and doing the wipe downs. I know a lot of people don't have them, and that industry kind of got in trouble for price gouging. Somebody had mentioned it earlier and confirmed it, that they're seeing these fogging machines on eBay for 10 times the cost. Well, I know the companies that actually manufacture them, a couple of them got in trouble because whenever COVID-19 came out and they felt like that fogging was going to be the go-to for being able to minimize risk, they started jacking the prices of the equipment up and got in trouble.
Yeah,
So,
somebody wrote that in here, that eBay's already got 10 times, 15 times the price of standard equipment. So, I really, I don't like that that's happening right now, but, do your research. If you guys, again, peer to peer, if you see any opportunities to get products, resources, share that with your peers around the country. It's definitely, everybody's in the same boat when it comes to getting things. Also, just to clarify, I read what Bill said earlier wrong. It was $1 for Cat 1, $1.50 for Cat 2, and $2 for Cat 3. I don't think that pricing is out of place per se, depending on the situation.
I think all dependent upon the region. I think the Cat 1 pricing is a little high, because I've talked to companies that, in Houston that are doing about 15 to 20 cents a square foot and still operating at 40% margin.
And it also depends on the size of the facility. I mean, a
Yeah,
bigger facility, obviously, you can discount your pricing. If it's a smaller facility, like a small retail shop, it might, for the time that it takes you to go out there and do that, it absolutely makes more sense. But
yeah, I don't know that there's really truthfully any definitive, that you could just say, let's just do blanket pricing based on Cat 1, 2, or 3. I mean, you could, but I think it's case by case basis on what you're dealing with, and there's just too many factors to be able to look in there. How much labor is this going to take you? How much consumables is this going to take you? What margins are you operating under? So there was, do you recommend fogging and follow up with wet wiping? Um, I don't see why not. I think the fogging is going to go through and it's going to stick. You're going to let it set, and then you're going to go back through and do a final wipe down just to ensure safety. Maybe a little bit overkill, but I don't know that there is such a thing in with what all we have going on. So as far as recommending that, again, it's if you have the manpower to be able to do it and keep up with it, it's just going to provide a higher level of preventative maintenance to be able to do it. You're taking that extra step. by all means do it. If you can do it, charge for it, and be able to do it at a fair and equitable price, then by all means, I say go that route.
Yolanda said, with products in short demand, where should we go? That is a good question and $1 million question right now. If anybody wants to share in the chat box any resources, links where they're finding a go-to for equipment, feel free to share that right now. Eddie, can you think of anywhere right now that they might be able to get creative looking for things? I know like everywhere it's been shut down from the clients we've talked to, but are you seeing any opportunity where they can get products right now?
I'm not, but the good thing is that I have not went through the entire list that was put out by the CDC for the confirmed 287 chemicals that will work on being able to contain and kill the coronavirus. I'm pretty sure, that if you go through there and you go through the list, you can get creative on the chemicals that you could do. Now, as far as the equipment is concerned, I think you're just going to have to turn over every rock and try to find them, because this is in such high demand and so many people are actually doing the cleanings and all of this, that I don't know that you're going to be able to overcome the equipment, much like the drugs that they're trying to use to combat it. They found that, there's been certain drugs that have been effective, and now they can't get their hands on those either. So, you're going to have to be creative. Like I said, on a Cat 1 cleaning, they're saying that the first thing that you should do is warm soapy water, go through and do the wipe down. So if you do a really good scrub on that and then just go back through on a secondary wipe down or fog with your proprietary chemical, you can save your chemicals rather than just going in and trying to do an initial wipe down and a second wipe down with the chemicals that you have.
Great. Any other questions from you guys? Anything pertaining to the sales positioning process? I mean, we kept it very short and to the point, but it really is a simple process. It's really about just doing that preliminary research, talking to the right people, and getting them in the door for that relationship. I know there could be a lot of challenges right now with doors being shut, but like Eddie said earlier, that's where you have to utilize digital channels like LinkedIn, even Facebook, Twitter. I mean, any platform that you can go out there and build that information. Thanks, Bill, for the comment. Appreciate that.
Well, one thing I do want to speak to that. So as moving forward, this should be a practice for anybody that is doing the business development side or the sales side of restoration sales. This is a good opportunity for you to really tighten those skills up on what we call pre-call planning. Being able to use all of your digital resources to be able to find the correct center of influence that you need to get in front of, have a list of scripted questions that you want to ask that are going to engage in insightful dialogue. The questions about, what's going to keep them up at night, how would you handle this, what would you do to be able to really open up and create the needs for your services. So, utilize those digital channels to perfect your pre-call planning right now. Use them throughout the rest of your career. The pre-call planning really, in my opinion, is the second most important part of the sales process. So, we would really want to emphasize that. It's going to help you be able to get in front of the correct person and be able to ask the right questions to be able to position yourself as a subject matter expert. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, like we said, we had this recorded today. Eddie's email is up on the screen right now, eddie@tierlevel.com. If you do have any questions about local digital marketing, SEO in your local market, feel free to reach out to us. We are very limited with who we work with because we work on geography and we don't ever want to overstep our current clients, but we do have a lot of open markets. If it is something you're looking to reach more clients, we do a lot of posting on the coronavirus conversation with extreme caution because of liability. But that's something that we are here to help with. Even if it's just to get some advice and some direction, we won't charge for our time. I know we're going to be getting a lot of inquiries on that, but we just want to encourage you, this is out of the generosity of our heart. We want to share this information with you from what we've learned. Again, we are not the prime experts, but we're just sharing what we've learned from the past. And we hope that became valuable for you guys today. So if there's not any other questions, we really appreciate you guys being on here. Feel free to email us. If you email Eddie, you have a question for me or Eddie, we'll both be getting those emails as well. Anything that we can do to help you, we will send the link out to this replay by this afternoon. I'm going to have the video rendered, and then we'll just send it to a private YouTube link so you can share with your team and any other personnel in your business. So,
well, we want to wish you the best of luck, but most importantly, we want you guys to stay safe. in all that you do. So again, thank you so much. We're honored that you guys joined us today. We love the feedback. Um, do want to address a couple other questions before we get off of here. Angel asked if does the government consider first responders, we the restoration workers that are doing COVID-19. The reason I ask is to know if we would be eligible for tested for COVID-19 in hospitals, even with no symptoms, to make sure that we're not spreading the case being a symptomatic carrier for the virus. I wish I had an answer for that. I think that's a fantastic question, Angel. If you will shoot me that question via email, I will get an answer for you today. We've got a pretty big reach and frequency in the first responder community. And I'm pretty sure we can get you the answer to that question.
And the other thing with it, to answer that question, just reach out to your local first responder, chief of police, fire chief, anybody in the local government, business development, economic development. They might be able to point you. I know here where we live outside of Tulsa and Broken Arrow, the Chamber's been sending out a lot of those types of resources right now of who to talk to and who to connect with. I would assume that, because we're part of the cleanup process, there could be some opportunity there. But also as well, this is another great conversation, talking to first responders and government officials. They have a lot of power when it comes to the cleanup of this process. Blaine also said, we are seeing cleaning companies use spray paint rigs with fine tips to deliver cleaning agent. Is this becoming more common since some aren't able to get their hands on electrostatic cleaning?
I think the thing about it is, what you have to understand is that it is not the machine that's doing the bulk of the work, it is the chemical. So how that chemical is applied, I don't necessarily know that it's going to make as much of a difference. I probably, because it's not electrostatic, would probably, in that instance, if I was being creative and using a fine mist spray from like a spray paint machine, I would probably do a secondary wipe down. But remember, much like carpet cleaning, it's, you can reduce the amount of work you have to do by letting the chemical do the work for you. So make sure you follow all the guidelines and directions, that you're not using too much of the chemical. That can be a bad thing. That you're using the appropriate amounts and you're following the directed guidelines on the bottle to be able to get the best results. So let the chemical do the work for you. And I don't think the application or how it's got on there necessarily matters. You want to put it on with a paintbrush, I'm sure you're still going to be able to get the same desired effect, as long as you go back through and do a secondary wipe down.
So, well, we really appreciate your comments. Thank you guys for being a part of this. We will be sending out the PowerPoint as well. I'll probably have it converted to a PDF. So that way it's formatted for you guys. I know the slides were very basic, but it does bring some good resource points if you have to share that with your team and community. So again, questions, please email us. We want to be here to answer anything that you have. Find us on LinkedIn, connect with us any way possible. We want to be here to serve you guys. So appreciate you guys from joining all over, from Canada to all over North America. Really appreciate you guys and what you're doing out there. We have a heart for this industry. And that's why we love teaching and selling this. So again, check out tierlevel.com/webinar. We will have many more free webinars that focus on digital marketing. We're going to take some of these questions and go back through them. We might build more webinars and bring some guest experts in as well. So again, thank you guys so much. And we appreciate all that you're doing. Keep up the great work. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time.
Thanks so much. You guys stay safe.